How are you? It's Pam. It's Monday, 12:15 Eastern Standard Time, and this is going to be the time for my lives every week. So, if you're new here, hello, welcome. My name is Pam. I'm the mom of four, grandmother of eight, and I have spent over 40 years in the early childhood industry working with young children and working with teachers to improve quality. So I've been a consultant, a trainer, a public speaker, a quality enhancement person, just a lot of experience with young children. So today we're going to talk about being literal and being specific when you're managing your children's behavior. But before we get started, please put in the comments, if anybody's on there yet, comments where you're from so I know who's hopping on here. And tell me how many children you have, maybe ages, okay? Now, I primarily have worked with children, birth to 6, birth to 5. I have worked with children that have different abilities, so I have a few years doing that, so I have some experience here. But one thing I want you to keep in mind is children are very literal, very literal. So when you're speaking to them, you need to be very clear and very specific about what you're saying. I will give you an example. My daughter, when she was 3, and now she's 23, my youngest, so they're 20 years ago, I was taking her into her child care facility to drop her off. It had rained that morning, so the bottom of her feet, her shoes were wet. She had on flip-flops, rainbow sandals, and they were wet on the bottom. When we walked in the door, I said, "Please wipe your feet." So what do you think she did? She took off her shoes and she wiped her feet on the carpet. And when I looked at her and I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "You told me to wipe my feet." And I had told her to wipe her feet. So I said, "Oh, well, yes, I meant for you to wipe your shoes, the bottom of your shoes." So then she did that, right? So you have to be literal and be specific. Now, let me back up for a minute and tell you, every Monday at 12:15 Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be here until 12:45. At 12:45, I leave to go pick up my grandson from farm school. He's 4 years old, and farm school is basically an outdoor preschool. He's out in nature. They have centers set up through the woods. It's really cool. And every time I pick him up, he gets in the car. He's dirty usually. He's got a stick in his hand, and one day a stick is either a knife or it's a sword or it's a gun or it's whatever he decides it is that day. He absolutely has a blast there. It's great. It's really cool. And I had done a reel about it a long time ago, probably last year. But it's really fascinating. And he learns through play. So when I shot a reel the other day and I talked about, please don't force your children, don't push your children to learn. Oh my goodness, the comments I got on that. Some people are like, well, yeah, great, we agree, they learn through play. And other people are like, no, you need to teach them. They're not going to know when they get to kindergarten, it's going to be a problem. And yeah, so it's interesting to read these comments. Let me just say that you have 60 seconds to do a reel for the captions to show, which I always want captions to show because there are people who are hearing impaired who read the captions. And then you have people who are, maybe at work checking it out when they're not supposed to be, or at their doctor's office, or out at lunch somewhere with other people, and they just want to kind of scroll through. So I always use captions. I'd say 99.9% of my reels have captions. So I have the captions on there. That's why it's like short and sweet. But kids learn through play. And when I say don't push them, what I meant was like don't sit down with them and force them to learn. Okay, we're going to do our colors. Now we're going to do our shapes. Now we're going to sit down and do math. Please don't do that. I mean, you can do that if they want to, but you don't need like worksheets and flashcards and drilling. Children learn through play. So when I'm with my younger grandson who's 2.5 and we're playing with cars, I said, let's count the cars. How many cars do we have? Let's talk, what colors are these cars? So we're kind of just doing it as we're playing. It's not a forced a sit-down situation. It's let's just play and have fun and learn as we go, right? And your kids will be okay, I promise you. Okay, so back to specific and literal. I'll give you an example. You have a child, say 3 or 4 years old, and you say, you need to go clean your room. And your child goes to the room, and there's toys on the floor, and maybe books on the floor, off the shelf, and clothes, dirty clothes laying there. And so they go in the room, and maybe they pick up a few things, and they come back, and they say, I cleaned my room. And you go in there, and you look around, and you're like, no, you didn't. What do you mean you cleaned your room? Look at all this stuff all over here on the floor. Well, to them, they cleaned the room because that's what they mean by cleaning their room. They picked up a few things. They're good. They did their job you asked them to do. But try this. You say, you know what, buddy? Time to clean your room. Can you go in there and see how many books you can put on the shelf by the time this bell goes off? Okay, you can make it a game. They run in, they put the books up. Okay, good. They come back out. You're like, yay. Okay, now you need to go in your room and pick up all the clothes that are on the floor and put them in the dirty hamper. Okay, so they do that. And then you say, go. And they run in and do that. Then they come back out, or you go in and you go, wow, this is looking so amazing. Show me where you put your toys. Where do your toys live? Can you show me where they go? They put them away. So then you're like, wow, you cleaned your room. Now you had to be very specific, right? Very literal about what they did. And you gave them instructions and you made it fun. Now, can you do that all the time? No. I know you're busy. If you have a lot of children, that just can't happen that way. But it can be specific. You need to go in your room, pick up the clothes off the floor, put them in the hamper. That's it. Young kids only need a couple commands. Any more than that, or you start explaining why they need to do it. No, it's over their heads. You've lost them. They can't even remember that from the time they leave maybe the living room to their bedroom. So it's really important that you get very specific. You need to go in your room, pick up the toys, put them in the hamper. Or put your clothes in the hamper, put your toys on the shelf. Whatever it is. Unless they put their toys in the hamper. Maybe some people do. I don't know. Okay? But there's a big difference than just saying, go clean your room. And that's just one example. Now let's talk about, and everything's situational, right? So you might do one type of behavior management in one situation, but in a different scenario, it's a little different because you have to have this toolkit of parenting skills. Let's bounce back to the reel I did at the park with my grandson the other day. And unbelievable the number of comments, of views on that thing. I don't know. I don't even know what the count is. I haven't looked recently. But let me explain that scenario a little bit so you'll understand what I mean about literal and specific. So I'm at the park with my grandson. I take him to this new park they built in their house. Now he's 2.5, and he's smart. He understands what I'm saying. So when people go, oh, he's so young, he doesn't understand. Oh yeah, he totally understands what I'm saying. So when you come into the playground area, you park and you come in, and that's where the water fountain is on the right. But then the playground you can't see from the water fountain. You have to go down a path and around to get to this massive, beautiful playground. So we come in, he sees the water fountain. I lifted him up. We filled up his water bottle. We gave him a drink of water, and I let him run his fingers through the water. Okay? So that's what happened what you saw in the video. So I set him down. He's heavy. I set him down. I said, okay, let's go to the playground. And he stood there. He said, no. He's 2.5. They love that word. No. He wanted to play in the water. And I just walked away. What I said is, we're not going to play in the water fountain. Now, do you hear what I said? If you listen back to the video, you hear it very clearly. We are not going to play in the water fountain. I didn't say he couldn't play around the fountain. I said, you're not going to play in it, meaning he's not going to play in the water, which is what he wanted. So he was being stubborn. Could I have picked him up? Sure. He's heavy. He probably started screaming. There was no need for that. I just walked and sat on the bench. He stopped and was waiting to see what I would do. So I went and sat on the bench and watched to see what he would do. It was interesting. And I just sat there. And I shot the video to show. It only took a minute. He walked around. He tried to figure out how he could get to the water. He realized he couldn't. And he walked over to me. Done. No problem. There was nobody got upset. Nobody screamed. People were saying spank him, pick him up, take him home. No, he wasn't being disruptive to other people. He was just pushing his boundaries, seeing what he could get away with. And I waited him out. And then he came over to me and I said, okay, time to go to the playground. And he said, no. So, you know what I did? It was a windy day. There were dry leaves on the ground. I picked one up. This is a good distraction, redirection. Threw it in the air. It blew down the path. He ran after it, laughing the whole way. And we did that the entire way to get to the playground. No problem. He had a blast. He played on the playground. We walked around the park. At some point, he got tired and I did have to carry him. And he's heavy. And I'm 66 years old. So, but I did it. Okay? It's not hard. This stuff is not hard. And when I hear people saying things like, just spank him, you know how I feel about that. I don't believe in spanking. So that wasn't going to work. He wasn't being disruptive. So people said, well, you said in one reel, take him out. And then this time you just let him get away with it. A couple things on that scenario, just for clarification, for your understanding. So when you're dealing with your own children, you get the difference. He wasn't being disruptive to anybody. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't crying. He wasn't causing a scene. He wasn't disturbing other people because there really weren't other people around. I think there was one lady coming out of her car, and it was just he and I. His mother was not there. Just he and I. So it didn't warrant me picking him up and saying, we're leaving. Because it was fine. I just used a different method. Now, I've had people say in that reel and in other reels, you're not his parent. You shouldn't be disciplining him. You're his grandparent. And I will remind you, yes, I'm his grandparent, and that's my job when he's with me. Now, if his parents are present, I back off. That's their responsibility. But if I'm there with him by myself or any of my grandchildren, and I have them from 2.5 to 21 years old, if I'm with them, it is my responsibility to just discipline them. And I have fun with my grandchildren, and they love me, and I love them, and I'm a fun grandma. But I do expect them to behave. I'm not going to tolerate misbehavior. It's a disservice to my grandchildren and their parents if I'm not disciplining them and managing their behavior when they're with me. That's part of my job as a grandparent. So it's not all just about have fun, give them anything they want, and see you later. It's not the way it works, at least not in my world. Anyway, so we had a good day at the park. He was fine. Everything was good the rest of the time. There was not a problem. Okay? People thought it was mean. That's okay. I disagree. And let me just tell you, I get a lot of interesting comments. So I get people that, yes, I agree with you. Oh, hi, Joan. Yay. Yes, thank you. I'm trying to explain, and not everyone's going to agree with me, and that's okay. But I have people that agree with me, and that's cool. I have people that don't agree with me. That's cool. I have people who are just downright nasty. That's not cool. But you be you. I just usually just ignore those nasty comments. I have people that say like smack them, knock them down, and you get trolls, you get creeps. I just ignore all of that because that's not what I'm here for, and that's not what I'm here about. So I pay no attention to all of that. But I think it's interesting to note that his mother and I were talking today, and I was telling her about the reel and kind of the response I got from the water fountain, and she started laughing. And hey, Deborah from Michigan. Joan, where are you from? Put it where you're from. I'd love to know where people are from. And I was saying, the people were commenting about I should have left him alone. I should have taken him out of the park, whatever, not let him go to the playground. The two were not connected. I never at one point said to him, if you don't come from that water fountain, we're not going to go to the playground. Now, if I had said that, then it would have been the right thing to do to pick him up and leave if he was starting to be disruptive. Okay? Michigan, Joan, Illinois, hey, good, glad to hear that. So there's the difference in that one. So his mom and I were talking, and she's like in her late 30s, and they have 3 children, 7, 4, and 2.5. And we talked about the fact that when children are disruptive to others, because I just did a reel this morning about if you're out in public with your children, you're at church, you're at their school, they're at a party, they're at a restaurant, and they misbehave to the point where they are disruptive of other people, around them, it is time for you to take action. Take them out. Actually, you should have taught them how to behave in the first place, right? When you go in those places. But children are children. They're going to test you and they're going to try you. And so, even though they know how they're supposed to behave, they don't always do it. So you, as a parent, have to take action, remove them from that scenario. Whether you say, like I did, if you do it again, whoops, sorry guys, I thought I had that off. And that's my daughter calling, actually. If I say, I'm going to take you out of the restaurant if you don't stop, in my case, he did stop, but then you do it. Other people said, well, I would take them to the car and let them calm down and go back in. Great, do that. Do whatever works for you, except for spanking them. People said, take them in the bathroom, smack them, whatever. No, but that's my opinion. But you have to do what you have to do. So back to my daughter. She and her husband go out a lot with the kids to restaurants, to like breweries and little restaurants around town. And so she said, you know, Mom, I'm seeing it's a real problem. Now, keep in mind, she's a young mother. She has 3 children. She said, you take your kids in there, and because children are welcome, and they're playing, there's games and things for them to play with. And it's cool. But when they start running around and interfering with other people who maybe are there without their children or don't have children, it's not fun anymore. It's not cool to do that and let them run around and do these things. Stuart, hey, Stuart. Good to see you from Texas. My sister lives in Houston. And your kids are grown disabled kids. Okay, so let me tell you, I work with kids with differing abilities. My nephew has differing abilities, my son and my grandchildren. And why this phone keeps going off, let me just text her. She's trying to get me because I'm actually picking up my grandson. Let me text her. I will get him. See how this goes? I'm doing my live now. Sorry, guys. Hold on. She's in nursing school. Okay. I'll go in a few. My daughter is she's 37 maybe, and she decided to go back to school to be a nurse. So she's in nursing school. And that's why I helped pick up my grandson. Okay, back to this. So no, she said, you know, Mom, I agree. It's disruptive. And it's not fair to people who are paying good money to come and sit and they want to relax and they want to enjoy. Why should they be subjected to people who are letting their kids run wild? Because they just don't feel like maybe parenting them at the moment. Maybe they're tired. Hi, Judy. Tell me where you're from. Oh, yes, Joan, I agree. The joys of grandmahood. I agree. But it's not fair to other people. And people call me old school, boomer, like that's a criticism. I don't think that's a criticism. Old, yeah, I'm old. I'm 66. That's neither here nor there, right? It's about behavior and disciplining your children. Okay, Judy, great. Indiana, thanks. It's about disciplining your children. So it's not always convenient, and it's not always something you feel like doing. You know, say you've had the kids all day, or you've worked all day, and you decide, let's go out to the brewery and have a beer, and the kids can play, we'll hang out, have something to eat, and we'll just chill because we're tired. It's been a long week. Then your kids start acting up, and you turn the other way because it's like, I just need to have this beer and chill, or I need a glass of wine, or whatever it is. Fine. But when your kids act up, it's not fun anymore. You have to stop what you're doing. You have to go deal with your children. And if your children can't behave, you need to leave. Take them out. Whether you take them to the car to calm down, and you explain how you expect them to behave, or take them home. Whatever you have to do, that's your responsibility as a parent. No one said parenting was fun all the time. It just isn't some days, and you have to do what you have to do. All right, let me read over some of these comments. I get told by my sister's husband, you're not your kids' friends. Exactly. You're not supposed to be friends with your kids. Now, let's get into that because that's a really good one, Judy, because people tell me this all the time. How dare you? I am friends with my kids. I'm their mother. I'm supposed to be their friend. Okay, difference. You can be friendly with your children. I was friendly with my children. My children knew I could come. They could come to me anytime with anything. I was friendly. I'm not their friend. Okay? I'm their parent. They don't have to like me. They don't have to like what I'm telling them. Too bad, get over it. I'm your parent. I'm not asking you if you agree with me. I'm not asking your opinion. I'm telling you, okay? And no. Okay, wait, Judy, let me get back. I get told by my sister's husband, You're not your kid's friends. Good. He's wrong, Judy. He's wrong. And you can let him watch this reel. You can be friendly, but you're not their friends. There's a difference. And it's a fine line, but there is a difference. My children knew that this was a tipping off point for me. Like, I expect you to behave. And I'm going to be kind to you and loving to you, which you do to your friends. But I am not your friend. I am your parent. And that's just the way it's going to be. And sometimes I say, I would say to them, you're going to thank me when you're older. Like, you don't get it now. Your brain's not developed enough to understand everything necessary that I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And you're a child and you want your way, but it's not going to happen. And someday you're going to thank me. And believe it or not, my daughter who's 37 and my son who's 39 both said to me this past week, we still look to you for how to discipline our children. Because they knew how they were raised, right? I raised them a certain way with expectations, and I expected them to behave, and they had responsibilities, and they had consequences, and they didn't have to like it. I didn't ask their opinion. And I know sometimes people say, well, let's talk about how they feel. Yeah, I don't give a flying flip how they feel a lot of the times. Like, sure, I'm going to listen to them. If it's a situation we're discussing something that happened, we can talk about it. And yeah, tell me how you feel about it, but that is not going to drive my reaction to them. Oh, Stuart, thank you for the stars. That is not going to change my reaction. No, this is how I expect you to behave. And you may feel like you're not happy about that. Too bad. Sorry. And I wouldn't necessarily be mean about it. I'd say, well, this is just the way it is. I'm your parent. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like it. You just have to do what I tell you to do. Okay? And I have to go in a few minutes here, but I had a person say to me one time, because I did a reel a while back about when my kids were, say 8, 9, 10 years old, and they would be disrespectful about something to me, start yelling at me because they were upset or angry. I would say, you need to go to your room. I don't care what you do in there. You need to go to your room, and when you can calm down and speak to me respectfully, come back and we'll discuss it calmly, rationally, right? And people told me that, I should have sat them down and helped them regulate in that moment and explain to them how they should react, and baloney. Nope, no. Because they're not willing to regulate at that point. They're dysregulated. Okay, and that word, these buzzwords drive me crazy. They were just being annoying and they were mad. So they were going to scream and cry and think they're going to get their way. Doesn't work for me that way in my house. Anyway, so I'd say, go to your room, calm down. And then people would say, well, you need to teach them how to regulate. They knew how to regulate. They were just choosing not to in that moment. And I'm not having a discussion with anybody who's dysregulated and screaming or crying. Go to your room, calm down. When you're done, come back. And it worked. And we would talk and everything was fine. And I didn't ask how they felt in that moment. I don't care how they felt in that moment. What I said was, I'm not taking that disrespect from you. I am your parent. You are my child. Go to your room. You may agree or disagree. I wasn't hateful. I wasn't mean. I just didn't put up with that nonsense. Okay. Hey, Susanna. Good morning. Yes. My youngest said, Mom, my friend thinks you're mean. I love it. I'm not your friend. I don't care if my kids' friends thought I was mean. Usually my kids' friends were coming to our house, right, to play. Let me tell you something. If those kids were at my house and their parents weren't around, they did something, I called them on it because I'm the responsible adult in that situation. So I would call them on it and I would say, guys, here's what I expect here. And if that's a problem for you, you're welcome to leave. But I expected them to behave at my house just like my kids are expected to behave at someone else's house. So I just didn't tolerate that misbehavior or that disrespect from my children or their peers or their friends that were coming over. Okay, let me look at some more here, see if I'm missing anybody. Okay, we have Michigan. Let's see, Indiana. Yeah, some people do let them go nuts, and it is not fair at all, and it is disturbing to me. And I had a guy tell me on the reels that he was in a restaurant with his wife. They live in a small town, and there was nobody in the restaurant. It was quiet and nice, and then a mom came with her 2 toddler kids, and she just let them run wild. And finally he had enough, and he just said, oh my God. And he said other people had come in by this time. The restaurant went silent, and those kids behaved the rest of the time. So the mother in this case just chose to ignore her kids. And why people think It's okay to ignore your children when they're misbehaving and just look at your phone or carry on a conversation and let them disrupt or do whatever they want, and it's someone else's problem to deal with. Or, I've heard people say, well, they're just expressing themselves. No, not in a restaurant where they're disturbing other people. And I know I keep saying this over and over and over, but I don't know what's going on in our society today where I see this a lot. We would have not done that when we were kids. We knew you went in a restaurant, you sat and behaved. That was just expected. We did it. It wasn't questioned. We didn't, fuss about it. You just did it because you knew that's how you were supposed to behave. We were taught that at home. We were told before we went in, you're supposed to behave. And we did. It was simple. So I don't know where the confusion is nowadays. All right. I have about 4 minutes left. So are there any questions? If you have any questions, pop them in the comment section. If you came in late, Monday is going to be the time that I do this at 12:15 every Monday for right now, unless I'm needed for one of my grandchildren or something with my mom. I get calls from the skilled nursing facility for my mom, and if I have to go, I have to go. Otherwise, I will be here every Monday. What I would love for you to do, whether you're a parent or grandparent, is either in the comment section, put a topic or a situation, a specific situation you'd like me to talk about. If you do a specific situation, I need to know how old the child is and kind of give me an example of what's going on. You can either do it in the comment section, or if you would rather do it privately, send me an email to Pam at CareFinders. That's one of my companies. It's CareFinderz.com. And then I will choose those to discuss in future lives. Okay? All right. If there are not any other questions, I want to thank you all for joining in today. I just decided to do this at the last minute, so I popped up a quick reel. I'm glad you all took time out to join me. I'm glad I'm getting people from all over the place. I want to make sure I'm not missing any of these comments. Okay. And Joan, let's go back to your comment about, or was it Judy? Oh, Joan, where you said the kids tell you're mean. I would say, yep, thank you very much. I didn't engage. I was like, yep, that's my job as your mother. Make sure you're behaving like you're supposed to. And if you think it's mean, it's mean. I just left it at that. I didn't really engage in those. Stuart, thank you. I've enjoyed it too. It is inconsiderate, Susanna, to ignore when you're in public. Totally inconsiderate. Yeah, it is. And I just don't get it why people think it's okay and everyone's allowed to just freely express themselves any way they feel like. So thank you all. Blessings to you all, and look for me next Monday at 12:15. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns you want me to talk about, remember, either put them in the comments section or shoot them to Pam at carefinders.com. And remember, hug and love your babies. Bye.